Hello, all you beautiful people and nerds out there. I hope you're doing fantastically. I hope you had a great reading month. And with that, let's jump into the reading month that I just had. So something I did this month that was really smart, and clapping your back, Wilma, you did a really good job. What I did is in notes, I actually wrote information about every single book I read this month because I didn't want to miss out on any information. I wanted to be as accurate as possible in my reviews of each and every book, and I do forget a lot when I talk about them at the end of the year. So I wrote little notes. It's awesome. So this is my most accurate opinion that you're gonna get. So the first book that I read this month was The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan. It's the second book in the Wheel of Time. I was very iffy about the first book. The timing felt off and it was just so slow and everything was explained. And I mean everything. When I was working my way into this, I was like, okay, I had quite low expectations, but I'm very committed to making my way through the whole series. So I was like, you can do it, you can power through, it's just 14 books, it's fine, it's cool. So this book took me quite by surprise. I ended up really liking this book. I think I gave it 4 stars. Basically in this one you kind of continue the quests, and in this one all the main characters, they go to find this horn which is supposed to revive all these old heroes that is gonna help with a war or whatever you want, kind of. And this one had a lot of tropes. I mean, it is an older fantasy, so of course it is like the first tropes we see in the fantasy genre created in this and also the Lord of the Rings. So in this one, I really like much more of it, and I think what bothers me about having so much explained in this world is that I don't know what's important. You know, when you see a movie and there's only close-up shots, like if you only got close-up shots of everything, it's like, okay, what am I supposed to be looking at? What am I supposed to be noticing? And so when everything is described in so much detail, every clothing item, all the settings, of course it becomes very realistic, but it also becomes very hard for the audience to differentiate between what's important and what's not. And I can't believe that everything is important. Like, people constantly tell me like, you need to take notes while reading this, and I have a bad memory, so in my mind I'm like, okay, I could take notes, but like, what can I take notes on? Like, everything seems to be important, you know? I'm gonna try, because everyone says between the 4th and the 6th book you're going to get lost if you don't take notes, and I'm gonna wing it, man. I'm just gonna read them and I'm gonna hope for the best. I feel lucky. Okay, I don't like taking notes because it means that I can't read it in every spot. It means I have to bring a pen, and it's just a lot. Also, another problem I have with this is that the female names are very similar to each other. Maybe that's just an issue I have, but there's like 3 females who have a name starting with the letter E. That is just too difficult for me, man. Names is just not my thing. What I really liked about this book though is that it had a very clear goal, and all the characters were kind of working towards the same goal. I feel like you really got to delve into all the eras in this world and how deep the history is. Like, you really got to look at like this world that Jordan has created, and it's starting to become more and more, and I'm a huge fan of these huge epic worlds, and I'm really excited to continue because you can see like you kind of get slowly more information, and the way that Robert Jordan weaves information into everyday conversation, into the plot, it never feels like an info dump. Information is just presented so naturally, and oh my god, with all the details and information you get in this like impeccable weaving is very important. I really appreciate that. Another thing which I thought was kind of weird, it's like while I'm reading this book, it's sometimes there's a character that pops up and I do not remember where this character came from, like how they were introduced. In the next chapter I'm like, who is this person? Like, how does they fit into the story? And it's somehow, I always forget. So all of a sudden there's a new person. I'm like, wait, have we seen this person before? And I just don't know. And maybe this is what they mean with taking notes, but there is a Wheel of Time wiki. So like, if you wonder about the characters or the plot, there's literally so much information there, and I think that's notes enough, to be honest. After that, I listened to an audiobook. This is An Absolutely Unremarkable Thing by Hank Green, and this book has been on my radar for a while because I know it's like a sci-fi, and what I really liked about this book is that it is someone who's in their 20s, and I'm currently 20, like I'm not in my 20s, I'm at the start of it, but I feel like generally I just get along and connect with people who are in their 20s, whatever stages, better than the young adult books. It's called new adult, I guess. And I just want to read more books about people who are in their 20s, and this was just like a really great pick. So you follow this main character. Should have taken notes on this too, that I forgot the name of. It's not important. She walks by the statue one day and she thinks it's an amazing piece of art, so she basically calls her friend and they make a YouTube video interviewing this piece of art or this statue, and then it goes viral, and it becomes like a thing that the statues has popped up in all the biggest cities in the world and also some small cities, and it becomes like, okay, how does this exist? Like, this statue or like an artwork of this size would cost so much money. Is it like a government thing? What is happening? And obviously this is a sci-fi book, so it's like aliens, I guess, or like first contact with aliens. Things I really liked about this, I liked how she's narrating the story, and I've been told that it's supposed to be like an unlikable main character, but I actually disagree. I think she is a more complex main character because she has certain sides that aren't perfect, but I don't think she's an unlikable main character just because there's sides of her I don't like or like that aren't perfect. Like, I think that's a weird way to see unlikable main character, because she isn't a bad person, so how is she unlikable? I don't know. She does make some doubtable decisions, but ultimately she is just a human being. Like, she does reflect upon it as she is narrating the book from the future. Also, considering the ending, how does she narrate this book? It has to be like a sequel, right? Like, I feel like there's a sequel. I think I've heard that somewhere as well. I really liked the puzzles in this book. I'm a big fan of like Ready Player One and books where you have to kind of like, it's puzzling but it's not a mystery. Yeah. So also go and watch Books Unbound podcast on YouTube by Ariel Bissett. Like, it's just really good. Although something I felt like needed to be worked on in this book is just the relationships and how they never wrap up nicely. I mean, I think this is like a book thing where you want all the relationships to have like a good ending and wrap up nicely, but in reality, also in real life, like that doesn't always happen, and I feel like most of the relationships were unsolved. I weren't a big fan of all the side characters except the main character. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see where the next book takes us. After that, I read Death Note 9 and 10. I did read these at different times in the month, but obviously I'm just gonna talk about them together. So for the 9th one, what notes did I have? Oh yeah, I'm struggling, I already said this, with like the second era of this series. So basically, I am very happy that in the 10th one, they are going back to Japan, because the whole thing where they're in the US, I am not a big fan. The whole thing, okay, so in this one, I think it is, there's this character called Nier who kind of is trying to figure out who Kira is, and Nier is supposed to be this quirky character where he's like constantly playing with like robots and toys, and it's so unnatural element where they've just put this toys in there so that he's gonna seem like quirky or different or like smart, but he's like a child. Like, it's so dumb, like you're trying too hard, and I thought I could deal with it in the beginning, but then toward the end he's like playing with rubber ducks in water, and I'm like, no, this does not fit the character. Robots, I understand. Toys, I understand. Rubber ducks, no. That's for like -2 years old, and it's just like not at the level of his other toys, and it was random. I don't like it. Another thing is that these books are so sexist, and I just can't get over it. Like, there's basically 2 female characters throughout this whole thing. Oh, and there's another one in this one, kind of, that show up, and they're just always manipulated by the men, and they're always being controlled by the men. And someone told me that there's a huge plot twist at the end of the series, and I want the plot twist to be that Misa is like playing them all. Like, if that is the plot twist, then I'm like, yes, okay, I love the series. Like, please, Misa, she's like, throughout this whole series, she's basically just like so in love with light, and it's disgusting. Like, it's disgusting the things she does for her, like him, like the way she basically gives up all her life for him. And Light is just such a despicable main character. I can't understand how I used to like him, and it's just these series, like, it makes me so upset because I feel like it's such a clever, well done series. But then Misa, oh my god, like, come on, get yourself together, girl. Like, you're such a powerful woman and you're being controlled by this, like, stupid, and she wears, like, such, like, lingerie and, like, her boobs, and it's just, it makes me, as a proud feminist, it makes me a little bit upset. I also feel like there's a few plot holes where like information is transferred, like where they go from one setting to another, but it could also just be me like not paying enough attention. And then for Death Note Volume 10, I also said that it definitely picked up towards the end. And another thing that I also wrote in my notes is that Light is gonna die at the end of the series. I don't know why I said that. That's just a wish. Maybe he becomes a Shinyami and then he, I don't know. Maybe all of these rules that are like distributed throughout this whole series is somehow gonna sneak up on you and like bring a plot twist. I'm very excited for the plot twist. Thank you for giving me that information. It's really making me push through the series. Okay, so the next book I read was The Grey Wolf Throne by Cinda Williams Chima. This is the third book in the Seven Realms series. Actually, I think this might be my least favorite in this series just because there's a lot of talking about events that already happened. So the book starts out really strong with loads of these actions and you're just thrown out into the story and it's really good. And then when she kind of comes home again, they all talk about what events happened and the misunderstandings, and it just goes again and again. But as the person who's reading this book, we already know what happened. Like, we know what the misunderstanding is. So for us, everything is like super clear, but because we get both perspectives, but for the main characters, like, they don't know, and so they talk over what happened again and again. But we already know, so it's like, it's so unnecessary, and I felt like that could have just been compromised, so like we talked it over, you know? Like, sometimes it's okay to make certain events much shorter. It's also something weird with this where you have these clan people, and the princess, she's half clan, half royal, or like from the Hanalea line. And everyone kind of hates the clan people for some reason. They don't trust their medicines and herbs, and they're just kind of like this unreliable people, and I don't really understand. Maybe there's some sort of history that I kind of like suppressed and forgotten a little bit, but I don't understand why they are mistrusted so much, and especially now because the princess is half clan. It seems like really disrespectful and unnatural for everyone to hate them so much when she is right there. Like, she is half clan. Like, come on, guys. Like, I don't know. And also, the Demonai are also clan, so, and they are like protectors and seen as these like amazing people, so I just don't really understand that aspect of the story. It's also a little bit strange how all the animals are like real animals. Like, I wish there were like magical animals as well. That'd be really cool. So this series is basically written like one whole story. Like, the books are good in themselves, but every book doesn't have a certain plot line curve. They don't start the same way or middle point or climax. They just all sort of have this story, and so in that way it's a little bit different, and it's also a great take on like a classical fantasy but with like a feministic twist to it. I really like that. I also like how the characters are so real. They have real character depth, they have real and like complicated relationships. All the characters are very like fleshed out, and there's not so many like one-sided background characters. Although I did expect like a big plot twist at the end of this, but it was more like a middle book syndrome story, but the whole series is kind of written like that, so I'm really expecting like a big finale ending. I want a battle at the end of the next book. Like, I just want a outright battle. And something I didn't write in my notes, the different countries, I guess, or regions in this book, or kingdoms, I guess you could say, are kind of their, what is it called, politics are incorporated into this book, but it doesn't really affect the main plotline so much, and so it kind of seems like the author has added these different kingdoms just to have a epic fantasy rather than trying to involve the kingdom we're following with the Princess Raisa together with the other kingdoms, because it seems like it's just kind of there, and maybe it's gonna come together, and the king of like the other kingdoms, or the leader, he does appear in these books, and that's not the problem. The problem is just that it's not involved enough, and it could have just kind of be taken out of the story and it would be more or less the same, is how I feel. And also, why can't these characters just get together already? Like, why aren't they already together? Come on, just so frustrating. Come on, it's so angsty. Just, they're meant for each other, literally, like fate. Come on. Also, there's some characters in this book I just hate so much. Like, it's just, I hate them. I hate them. Oh my god. Okay, so the next book I read was Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer. This is a book club book that I read with my mom together, and we actually did a like 1-hour talk on camera about this book. And I want to post that, so I don't want to say too much about it. I'm just going to talk about what it's about. It's basically a nonfiction book about factory farming and what eating animals means to us and the world and pollution and animal cruelty, and it's just a really, really great book. I think everyone should read this, and I think everyone is obliged to have this type of knowledge because all these type of industries, they rely on that we don't have this knowledge, and that's why I think it's so important to obtain this knowledge, and reading a book like this is a great way to start because it's such a central issue today, and it's just really important, and I'm super passionate about it, so I'm not gonna go into too much on it. The author, he really weaves himself in the story. He's not a perfect person. He says sometimes he eats meat, and that's fine. It's not a case for vegetarianism or vegan. He's just giving you all the information and telling his thoughts on it, but he definitely does support being a vegetarian. It's just very relatable, and I really highly recommend you read it. Alright, so this is Blood Witch, the third book in the Witchlands series. It was 2 years ago since I read the last book, so I've forgotten like 80% of what happened in the previous books, but the reason I picked up this book is the magic system, which is so clever. There's like these different types of witches, and they have different type of powers, and the two main characters, Sophie and Iseult, one is a thread witch and the other is a truth witch, and truth witch don't really exist. And so in this book, she's in a kind of like sticky situation. All the characters are in a sticky situation. They not only are the friendship, the two main characters, I read it because I wanted to read a female friendship. They basically never meet throughout this whole book. And so like the whole friendship part is not a part of the book. And all the main characters are kind of like victims to fate in this story, which is so frustrating because they're kind of just like swept along with other people's plans, are stuck in certain situations, and that none of them are like taking control of their positions, and it's really, really frustrating. On the other hand, like there's some really, really great female characters in this, and a thing that this book really struggled with is the distance between the different places. There is a map in this book, but in this one they kind of like introduce these portal doors that can take you from one place to another, and it made it very convenient and very difficult to understand how far away the places were from each other and how far they traveled, as well as like the travel parts in the book were very compressed and shortened, so it doesn't take up as much time as the other parts, which is kind of a downer. Like I don't like travel books, like when they travel, so for me it's like I'm not really interested in that part, but it made it really hard to connect with like the timeline of this book, to be honest, and they should have just taken more time with those parts. I don't know, it was just very passive like through this whole book, and there's a lot of character perspectives, and it wasn't necessary to like have the perspective from all the characters. On the other hand, the climax was brilliant. Like the ending of the book was very well done. It was very like dramatic, and I just kept turning the pages. I think I gave this book 3 stars all in all, and I really wish I would have remembered something from the previous books or read up on my information because I totally didn't do that. So dumb. Also, I was so politically lost throughout this whole book. Like I had no idea what like the politics were happening and why they were happening, and it was just a little bit of a mess, and to be honest, I don't think anything was like resolved at the end of this book. The main characters met each other, and that's great. Like that's it. So I don't know. After that, I picked up a graphic novel. This is Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me by Mariko Tamaki and Rosemary Valero O'Connell. Okay, so I love this. Did I give it 5 stars? I don't know. As a graphic novel, this was so cute, so important, and it's basically about these 2 girls who are together, and the main character is this woman right here, and this is Laura Dean. And so Laura Dean treats the main character, which I don't remember the name of, very badly and cheats on her, and it's just such a bad situation, but for some reason she just can't say no when she wants to get back together with her. So this is about the main story coming to terms with what kind of relationship she wants with Laura Dean and with herself. And what I really liked about this book is that you get to explore all these different characters or like different relationships the main character have to different people rather than just this one relationship. Like she meets several people during the story and they all have different plot lines, and it's all woven together flawlessly and in a way that makes it very natural and lifelike. I also liked how the animals and toys in the story like kind of came alive or like had opinions on stuff that was happening or like comments. That was so cute. I really liked that. There was also some like really heartfelt good moments with really great advice, and I really like the artwork where it's just one color style. I think that was very well done, and it's just like my type of thing. Like the artwork kind of reminded me of Sunbeam, so that was really cute. The last book I read this month was A Starlit Sea by Erin Morgenstern. This is her second book, the author of Night Circus. So this is about this boy who picks up a book and he starts reading it and he notices that he is in the story and he has this one part that is his tale. And the book that he's reading, it's basically many small stories, one about a pirate and some different things going on, and he notices he's one of the stories, and so somehow he's kind of like swept into this world, this underground magical world where all of these books are, and it kind of feels like a love letter to books. It's so obvious that this author just feels very strongly about books, and there's a lot of references to different famous books throughout this, which was really fun, and it kind of had this whole like Alice in Wonderland kind of theme, and I basically knew all the books, which was cool. I love it when that happens. In my opinion, this was a little bit too whimsical. I love magical realism, but there was just so many whimsical elements, and the main character, in all honesty, blacked out way too many times throughout the story. Like the whole middle part, it just went like round in circles, and he blacked out and he woke up in this place, he blacked out and he woke up in this place, and nothing much happens. But throughout it there's excerpts from all these different books that somehow are connected, and the characters he meets are connected, and at the end everything is just solved and it all makes sense, and the characters are just woven together flawlessly in a way that's just like so satisfying. That was really cool. So I was planning on giving this like 3 stars when I read it, and I was like, this middle part is so boring, nothing is happening, it was too whimsical, and it was just like, ooh, not my favorite thing. But then the ending was just really satisfying. The reference, like how much honey was in this book, was making me really nauseous because I don't like honey, and there was just so much of it all the time, and it was actually making me nauseous. But also the main character and his love interest was not meant for each other, or like the thing is they was meant for each other, but I just didn't think they fit together, and I felt like the romance was kind of forced, and I didn't like that element at all, and I really wish they would have, the author would have worked on that more, because it didn't seem like when they ended up together I was like, oh, really? I did not see that at all, and I don't think they fit together, which is kind of strange. Throughout this story, like the author just like had so many interesting themes with time and fate and the characters that are like popping up throughout time in these different books. It was just very cleverly done, and I really like it when you can interpret a book for itself. But I do think the story could have been like a little bit more concise and clear in what it's doing, but at the same time I wouldn't change it. Like, it's a very strange feeling, but if you like the Night Circus, I definitely think you should check it out. So those are all the books that I read this month. I really hope you enjoyed. I am currently reading Andamayan, and I really thought I would finish it. I'm soon done. I really thought I would finish it today because for some reason I thought this was 31st of November, and it turns out that date doesn't exist. There's no 31st of November. So it is 1st of December today, and I did not finish this in time, which is disappointing, but such is life, you know. I'll finish it today and it'll be in the next wrap up. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment below all the books that you read in November, and if you read any of these books and your thoughts on them. I wish you all a magical December, and keep reading, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye!